Hey everybody, our party just had a heck of a run-in with the rivals and with Galio Kerda, and we're going to talk about it. So let's dig in. Welcome back. Before we dive into our session recap, let's talk about what went well. The interaction that my party had with the rival party went really well, and my party is really starting to get along with the rival party and have a good time with them, and the conversations are getting more fruitful and more robust. What could be better? I need to figure out a better way to organize my notes because I am bouncing all over the place trying to find the info I need as they traverse Kael Morrow and ask questions of people. So some of that can't be prevented because you can't predict exactly what everyone's going to be asking, but I'm going to try and think of a way to better organize. Let's talk about what actually happened. The party had just taken care of the mutated crabs, the scuttling serpent maws, and they lurked around the area for a little bit and found a clay tablet that Alexian himself wrote on, and it discussed a little bit about his preparation for taking on Grumsh, I don't know however you pronounce that. My party was like, oh, that's super cool. This is probably the tablet that Insight was looking for. So let's go head back and give this to her. They start heading back, and Jimmy, who has the highest passive perception, starts to hear a little bit of a commotion through a doorway to the north. And they're like, ooh, that's pretty sketchy. So Dmitri's like, okay, I'm going to sneak over there and I'm going to peek open the doors. Rolled really high on the stealth check, looks in, and I described the scene before. Dmitri sees their friends, the rival party, and Galio Kerda and her shield guardian fighting. She sees that Irvan is on the floor, has lost an arm, and is in rough shape with the shield guardian standing over him. They're like, oh crap, that is not good. We'll have them roll initiative. One thing I wish I would have done is pre-roll the initiative for Galio Kerda and the rivals, but I didn't, and that's fine. We just rolled a bunch of... A little bit of a delay, as everyone kind of prepped what they were wanting anyway, so it worked out okay. They stepped in, they fought. Both Iris and Jimmy tried to heal Irvan, but Irvan was already dead. So no effect for their spells their first turn. They were like, oh, this is not good. Whole bunch of attacks back and forth with Galio Kerda and the Shield Guardian. Meanwhile, Dermot eventually gets over to Irvan and is able to pull out a diamond, cast Revivify, and get Irvan back to life. Couple more rounds of combat, and eventually my party finishes off Galio Kerda and the Shield Guardian, and then do non-lethal damage. That's how my party likes to roll, which is great. And they interrogated Galio Kerda with what they could. She would not give up much information other than she regretted doing anything that might hurt Insight and the friendship that she has with Insight. My party's like, well, we're not getting much further. Rivals are like, all right, let's just take her back. Have a little bit of a conversation with the rivals about what happened and what they've been up to while they went down here. They found out that obviously Galio Kerda is the spy that the rivals have been looking for the Allegiance, and they take her back to Insight. Get to Insight, who is super sad to see that Galio Kerda is basically locked up. I think they had her in manacles again, as my party's go-to as well. Had her in manacles, brought her in. Super sad to see that. Very, distraught, not very conversational after that. Has some guards from the Allegiance, comes down, take Galio Kerda to the Allegiance headquarters in Angarel, where she can be questioned properly. From there, my party had some questions for Insight, specifically about the Apotheon and Alexian. Told them about the Consortium hideout in the villa. If they want to find a key, that if it was left anywhere, that's probably where it would be. Not sure exactly what the key is. Also told them about the Temple of the Archheart because my party had seen that and was curious about what it was. They haven't been able to get in, but something seems to be protecting it and keeping the water out. So my party's like, all right, conversation's good. Rival parties are like, we're going to head back up to the Allegiance to see what they can do for Irvan. And Trixie is like, hey, I can maybe make you a prosthetic arm. And they're like, yeah, that sounds great. And that's perfect. That's what I was going to have them do anyway. So yeah, great. Trixie, work on it. That sounds fantastic. And we'll have her do that. Once they get back up out of Kael Morrow, I'm going to give them some time. Do what they need to up above, which I assume will include the fight pits, the fighting tournament, and then we can dive back into Kael Morrow. Up until now, I've been speeding up the missions in between. The book says 7 days in between each. It's been like a day or two in between each, but I think this next one we're going to give them about a week to recoup before they head back in and probably head into the Netherdeep, but we'll see. Okay, all that being said, from there, headed to the Temple of the Archheart. They wanted to get in. They tried a whole bunch of things to try and get in, but they couldn't figure out how to get in. I think Iris even tried praying to Coralon, but nothing worked because obviously she's not a devout worshiper. So they head over to M10 where there are ghosts. And if you'll remember, I switched M10 and M8 just so that my party could find the clay tablets at the end of their last session. So switch that up. They ran into the ghosts. Trixie was possessed right off the bat. Had them roll initiative, and so that we could take turns mostly. And so Trixie possessed, had the visions that are described in the book. My party originally tried to fight, but quickly figured out that the ghosts weren't trying to fight them. They were just trying to communicate. So they have the visions. Trixie was possessed, and like they started hitting to try and get Trixie unpossessed. I had the ghosts run all the way out to the Temple of the Archheart and stay there, and they're like, oh, that's kind of weird. Okay, stop everybody. And then that's when they kind of figured out that they're not here to fight. They just want something else. And then my party was able to talk to the ghosts, and they described a little bit about the day they lived in with Elixion and who he was and kind of his role in the whole story. And they're a little bit sad that he wasn't able to be successful. And my party's like, oh, he's not successful. And they're like, no, hello, we're downstairs. We're under the water. We're down here, not up above. And the whole city was ruined, basically. Then my party is really concerned about the aboleth being Elixion. So they asked pretty much everybody if they think it's possible. These ghosts are like, I don't think so. If that is Elixion, something has definitely changed. Kind of fed them a bone there because they've been pretty persistent about asking about that. Mostly because Iris's patron is the Elixion aboleth, and I'm going to start leading her into patron from her previous lives because she's Luxembourg, which should be pretty exciting. I think she'll really like that. My party heads up to the villa because they want to go see if they can find the key. They make their way up, and they run into a death embrace and some sorrowfish. And I will tell you this, the death embrace is no joke for a party. I think they have 60-foot reach on their attacks. They can swim all over the place, and if you fail saves, you can get petrified. I was a little bit lenient on some of those checks because it's no fun to just get straight up petrified. So I had them start getting pulled in after they were grappled by the death's embrace, and if they got to where the death's embrace was, all the way up to its body, and then failed their save, they were petrified. Most of my party was able to break free before they got in within like 5 feet or melee of the death embrace. They were all fine with the exception of Rusty, who is Trixie's little artificer companion. Lots and lots of damage. This thing deals a lot of damage, and it was a lot of fun to see my party have to think about things in a different way because it's underwater. It's already a twist, but this is something that they have not had to deal with before. And it was a little bit of an eye-opener for them. But they managed to defeat both the death embrace and the sorrowfish, which is a pretty hefty fight for them, especially because Chozen was gone again. So there's one more heavy hitter that's not there, but they were able to make it through and finish just fine. They then are out of pretty much everything, spell slots, hit die. So they're like, let's go back up and take a long rest. And Trixie's like, well, actually, I have this tiny hut I can conjure up, and we can take a rest here. It's like, oh, let's do that. So we're currently taking a rest inside of Kael Morrow, and that is what happened in our session. We'll pick up from there next time, but pretty exciting stuff. I'm really having a lot of fun running this adventure, and I would say that I highly recommend this for anyone who is interested. That is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Huge shout out, as always, to my patrons. You guys are the best. We'll catch you in the next one.